Of adware. And well, adware is basically a piece of software that comes bundled with a legit software, and it's distributed by some legit distributor. And when you install it, you actually allow it to be installed on your computer. But then it annoys you and gives you a lot of annoying advertisements that you don't want to have, and it's usually hard to get rid of. But, well, that's a question. Is it bad or good? Like, by raise of hands, who thinks it's good? Okay, so no one. Well,
the ad vendor thinks it's good.
Yeah, the ad vendor thinks it's good, and if we'll block them, they'll be really mad. So basically, it's a big question if adware is good or bad. So we decided to exclude these samples and say, well, we'll handle it next time. So next thing is we need to understand how much black is there in the world. So basically most of the internet is good, and it makes sense. Most of it is there for us to use it and to enjoy it and not to be attacked by or to lose information to or stuff like that. So why is it that hard to find out if something is good? Basically, the answer is, if I don't know you're a spy, it doesn't mean you're not a spy. So if I don't know that something is benign, it doesn't mean it's not benign. It's not malicious, sorry. So a few basic problems with URLs that we need to address and need to remember when we try to collect samples of white URLs is, first of all, there are a lot of different types of URLs that you need to be handled. So first of all, you have black domains. Black domains are domains that are actually malicious. They were registered for the sole purpose of malicious activity. No. No. Oh. So it was registered for the sole purpose of malicious activity. Then you have, sorry. It's not, oh, damn. So then you have the compromised domains, which are actually good domains that were hacked, and now some of the traffic to them is good and some is bad. You have the related domains, I'll be doing that all the time, sorry, which are good domains, but they are used by malware to do benign activities. So for example, Google or Microsoft Update, they are used by malware to check for connectivity. They're used for geolocation discovery and stuff like that. They're actually good, but they are used by malware. And then you have the user uploaded content domains. And these domains are on their own, they're good, but some of the content that users upload to it is malicious. So handled. So some URLs, for example, redirection URLs, they seem very different, but actually they're the same. So for example, if you think about redirections, you have all kinds of tiny URL or good.gl or bit.ly that they redirect you to a completely different site. And the features and the attributes that these URLs will have are extremely different. But the end result, the end resource is the same. So if the end resource is malicious, then both URLs or all the length of the string of the all the length of the redirections will be benign or malicious as the end resource. So like these two pandas, like one is big and black and white, the other one is tiny, red, and looks like a fox, but they're both pandas. So different features, but same results. And then you have to remember that there are also white domains and URLs. They might be clumsy, but they're good, and you don't want to block those. So then you have the problem of temporality. A URL that is benign today is not necessarily going to be benign tomorrow because it can be hacked, the domain can be hacked, and then some of the URLs will be malicious. Same about malicious URLs. If it's malicious today, it doesn't mean it's going to be malicious tomorrow because the website can be cleaned and the malicious resource can be removed. This is not true for files. file, if you can prove that the file is malicious, and it was malicious back in '96, it will still be malicious in 2016. So you have to remember the temporality issue with URLs. Different direction. So what did we actually do and how did we get our data? So first of all, we had to get the black samples. So we took some from our protection DB. And it's the database that we store all the protections for all the different threat prevention blades that we have at Checkpoint. We took the ones that are high confidence and we were really sure of. Then we used our statistics DB, which is a database that gives us information about malicious activity that happened in the recent time, and we actually have recent URLs that were involved in malicious activities. And then we also added domains from DGAs, so those are by definition malicious. And then we had to get the white samples, so this was the easy part. And when we started looking into white samples, we saw that there are a lot of different practices that people have been using and a lot of ideas of how to do that. And we thought they're a bit questionable. So I'll go over these questionable practices and explain why. So first of all, why not just take everything that has 0 positives on VirusTotal? So basically, as I've said, if I don't know you're a spy, it doesn't mean you're not a spy. So the fact that VirusTotal says 0 positive does not mean that this URL is not malicious. So going and asking VirusTotal for everything that is 0 positive is not good enough. The next thing was, well, why don't you just take Alexa Top? And there are a lot of sites that are high ranked and they must be good. Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself, top what? If you're talking about the top 100,000, then not such a good idea. Most of the Zeus domains are in it. Then if you only try to take the top 1,000, you're still having a problem. For example, this domain, and it's a malicious domain, and when I took the screenshot, it was ranked 653. A few months before that, it was ranked about 200. You do not want it in your data set tagged as white. So that's a problem. And then, well, why don't just take top 100? Top 100 will probably work because top 100 will probably not going to contain any malicious URLs or domains in this case. But that is just not enough data for machine learning, so that's a bummer. Then you have the question of why not just take anything that's been around for a while. So let's take domains that have been here for over 10 years. They must be good. So let's look at the Dropbox example. They were registered almost 20 years ago. And if you look on the Google Safe Browsing Advisory, you'll see that it was tagged 55 times for malicious activity during 3 months, containing 4,000 Trojans, about 2,000 viruses, and 1,000 exploits. So, no, shouldn't work. And then the last point was, well, you can do what most people do when they do machine learning. You can just use an external data set that someone else has built. So in this case, we have to address 2 different types of data sets that are out there, and you can probably think that you can use them, but you shouldn't. So one is the data sets that are published by all kinds of research organizations like universities or labs and stuff like that. And they publish a big data set containing a lot of samples with their features. Problem is, if you're going to use features that are different from the features that are already in that set, you have the temporality problem, which I'm going to be discussing later. But you cannot calculate the temporal features for data that was collected a long time ago and without recalculating the verdict, and then you do not know if the URL is actually good or bad. Another problem is with sets of data that are manually tagged. So for example, there are a lot of different services that allow people to collect sets of data. For example, you have Reddit and you have like all kinds of web indexes and stuff like that, that people manually say, well, this URL is baseball, this URL is cooking, whatever. So with those sets, the problem is that the people that actually create them, first of all, are not necessarily security experts. So the fact that they can say that a certain URL is baseball related does not mean it's not malicious. Maybe it's both malicious and baseball related. If you can find a set that was created by security experts and was created recently, then you can probably use it. But go ahead and find one, because I didn't manage to do that, and I've tried. So how did we get the white samples? What did we actually do? So first of all, we got firewall logs from our customers all around the world, representing different time zones and different languages and different locations. So every country has the sites that they go to and stuff that interests them and the top level domains, and everything changes. So some customers agreed to share information with us, and we used it. Then we also added Alexa Top 100 for each country in the world. This resulted in about 5,000 domains, and after you look at those domains, you'll see that although you have about 5,000, the samples I showed earlier, for example, the domain that had ranked 600 is not in the set. So you actually can sift out the malicious things. For each of these URLs, and I have to say that when I'm talking about domains, I'm not actually talking about domains. When we are adding a domain to the data set, we're actually adding the root URL /URL and not the domain itself. I'm not going to say that anything in this domain is good or anything in this domain is bad. I'm going to do it like surgically, and I'm going to say for each specific URL if it's good or bad, because I want to make sure that I have low false positive. So for each URL in the data set, we only sieved URLs that first of all were not detected by our appliances, which is easy. And then we also checked them against VirusTotal, and we took everything that had 0 positives. So at this point, people might be asking me, well, didn't you say taking everything that was 0 positives is a bad idea? It is. But in this case, it's a bit different. So I'm not going to VirusTotal and asking, dear VirusTotal, give me everything which is 0 positives. I have my own set and I'm testing it against VirusTotal. So it's actual traffic that I'm testing and not asking for input from the service itself. So it's a completely different thing. And we also took the ones that were not previously uploaded to VirusTotal, so it means no one had yet suspected them, and thus we can assume that they're good, probably. And then we also added testing data. I'm going to talk about it in a second. It's resembling the boosting concept of machine learning, but I'll leave it for the next slide. We ended up with a data set of about 1 million samples, 70% of which was white samples. So what did I mean about testing data? So when we took our data, we prepared for both train and test. And we actually ran our clustering algorithm, and we got 2 sets, white and black. And at this point, we just looked at the black set and analyzed it manually and looked for anything that was false positive. So anything that was false positive, we then decided if to move it, to manually tag it as white or not, and thus we moved samples to the white side, although they were automatically categorized as black. So the next thing we need to be able to handle is temporality. So as I've said, time is a big issue with URLs, and the problem consists of two different aspects. So the first one is consistency. If I know that a URL is benign right now, then I have to collect all of its features right now. If I'll collect the features in half a year from now, I'm not sure that those features will be representative of the verdict that I gave to this URL. So if a URL was benign half a year ago and I collected some of the features, and now I'm adding new features that might change with time, that's a problem. Then you also have to keep in mind that you need to solve the freshness problem. Some temporal features, they age with time. So if, for example, you look at features as domain age in days, well, half a year ago, it was 17 days. Today, it's going to be half a year ago and 17 days. So you need to be able to make sure that if you recalculate your set, you need to make sure you have fresh samples and that those samples represent the world a little bit better. So the result is that your data set cannot be collected once and then updated with new features or new samples very easily, unless you recalculate everything every time. But then you create the freshness problem. So how did we handle that? What we did was actually pretty simple. We added more data. So every time we wanted to add a new temporal feature that made us recalculate all the data, we added more data to make sure that we have new fresh samples. So we took about 10% of the original data set for both white and black URLs. We recalculated all the features for all the URLs, and we also recalculated the verdict for each sample. So this way we had both consistent verdicts with samples, and we had solved the freshness problem. And so that's it. Then the next problem we have to address is that some domains contain hundreds of URLs. And if you introduce all of these URLs into your set, you will create a bias towards the features of that domain and those URLs. So the solution is to limit a domain to a fixed amount of URLs. You can limit it to 10, you can limit it to 100. If you limit it to more than 100, you will probably create a bias, so don't. And then you have to test on these joint sets. So what I mean by these joint sets in this exact point is these joint sets of domains. So I have a set of domains that I have in my training set. I will intentionally look for different domains that have not been part of my training set. So I'm not looking for disjoint sets of URLs, which is the basic for train and test when you do machine learning, but I'm actually cutting the two groups based on domains. It's even a bigger disjointment or something like that. So the next thing is the thing that I've mentioned about redirections and URL chains. So for example, if we look at this URL, we have good.gl knnw8f. And it gives you a 301 moved permanently response and sends you to Sanger DK. So if you actually surf to this URL, you'll get this, if the internet works. Oh. And when you look at this, well, it has the verdict of cute. It's kind of malicious because when you have it on your desktop at work, you'll continue staring at it the whole day instead of working. But other than that, it has nothing malicious in it. But the two URLs are extremely different. They have different top-level domains. They have different response codes. They have one has a path, one doesn't have, has a root path. So all the features are different, and you need to be able to handle all of those. So what we did in order to handle this was basically for each URL we introduced to our set, we surfed it, and we got all the redirections, and then we found out the verdict for the last resource, and we added that verdict to each of the URLs. So. Some fun facts that we've noticed while we were collecting data. So basically, a lot of times when you look at domains or URLs from a research point, you sometimes think that, well, if someone is trying to hide who he is, he's probably trying to do something bad. Well, we found out that that is not exactly true, and domain registers who use all kinds of privacy protections, that it doesn't mean anything about their intentions. We also have this notion that some top-level domains are more prone to malicious activities. So a lot of people say that, well, info and bees and .ru and stuff like that are more prone to malicious activities. So what we have seen is that bees, info, and PL indeed contained a lot of malicious content. .ru and .net did not. So do not blame Russia for everything. And another thing, which is just a nice, cute fact, is that Google is not the top site in every country in the world. It's nice to know that some people prefer Facebook over Google, apparently. And out of the top 5,000 sites that we got after we found only the uniques for all the countries, 100 of them are Google's, like Google CO UK and Google Com BR and stuff like that, and 100 not including Google advertisements and Gmail and stuff like that, but a lot of Google out there. So, some conclusions. If you have a suspicion and you're not sure that something is white, then assume it isn't. It's enough for you not to categorize it as white. Then you have to manage temporality. Either build your data set with all of its features at the same time, or keep on adding new data to keep it fresh and recalculating all the features all the time to keep it consistent. And always remember, the training distribution does not actually represent real-world traffic, and that is something that leads me to future work. And well, our first thing is, how do we make the data set represent real traffic? As I've said, we don't have a lot of malicious content on the internet, as we would assume. And we actually used 70% white and 30% black in our data set. So that's a bit of a problem. And on the other hand, to use 99% white and 1% black would have also created a bias, and we would probably not been able to do anything good with it. The next thing is, well, we need to be able to handle adware, since we just decided not to. And we have to remember that the training set that we use is very clean. But the real world is way more messy, and that there are things that we didn't actually look into. For example, if I have a benign URL and it then got hacked and now it redirects me to a malicious iframe. So how am I supposed to tag this URL? Is it white? Is it black? Is it Dalmatian? I don't know. We did not solve this problem at this point, and it's something we're going to be trying to do in the future this year. So if you have any ideas, feel free to contact us. My email is here. So that was me. Questions?
Sure. A lot of websites are becoming more and more dynamic, so you never get the same information twice. So how do you handle that in your whitelist blacklist when you never get the same information twice?
So the models that we've been working on, and it's kind of outside of the scope of this conversation, but the models we've been working on, they look at a specific URL at the specific time of you trying to access it. So while I'm training my model, I get some kind of content, but when I'm trying to test on it and use it in a product, I'll actually be checking what happens there right now and how the features fit into the model. So.
It sounds like your base rate, you really edge towards the world is hostile. Don't you get a lot of false positives out of that?
So, first of all, the world is hostile. And actually, no. Well, we did 3 different projects based on this methodology of data collection, and we got pretty good results in the aspect of false positive. We did have to compromise on detection rate, but if you get a false positive of 0.01%, and even if the detection rate drops to about 80%, that's good enough. So.
Are you expecting the output to be part of a threat data feed or something like that you could be selling? Or?
So it depends. Well, as I've said, we have 3 different projects, and 2 of them are directly the back end of our products that we actually sell. And one of them is a threat feed that we're going to be introducing into our products. We're not going to be currently selling it, so we don't sell information.
So you said you were taking URLs from firewall logs from your customers.
Yep.
Were you just assuming that everything in their firewall logs was white because it didn't come up on the
No,
flags?
no. So what we assume that everything is, the only thing we wanted to get from the firewall logs was to get actual traffic. And then we first removed all the URLs that were detected by any of our appliances. So we actually removed everything that might be black. And we actually did that with using all of the low confidence signatures. So if, in this case, if I have a doubt, I don't have a doubt. So I'll take everything and just say, well, no.
When you vetted your URLs, did you use multiple user agents to pick out sites that may be redirecting, i.e. users or Chrome users or
No.
Safari users?
Future work. We should probably check it out, yeah.
Especially mobile devices, you get a totally different site.
Yep.
A mobile, browser versus a...
Yeah, we'll probably have to check it out. I'll add it to the future work list.
What user agent did you use or what browser did you use?
Chrome. Chrome.
Within the blacklist or the black domains, is there any thought given to the registrants behind those?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. As I've said, we did look at the data about who registered the domain and how long ago did it happen and how many registrant changes were there and stuff like that. This is also one of the problems that you have with freshness of data. So when you look at features such as how long ago was it registered, then it ages every time you calculate it. So you need to be able to look at it. Anyone else? Well, thank you.